Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, Austin and I are talking about Christopher Nolan's 2010 action thriller film, Inception. Weirdly enough, while this is a review of the film, it slowly becomes a psychoanalysis of Nolan's career as a whole by the end. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, leave us a rating or a review, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
We're live.
Oh shit.
And we're live. Looky there.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
How you been, man?
Can't say that I've been up to a whole lot lately.
You always say that shit.
I do.
And then I go, oh, my life has changed dramatically. I'll be like, I'm a father now.
Maybe I'm just bad at bringing up when
You
something
are.
exciting happens to me. I'm like, yeah, my life, pretty boring.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you're really bad at that.
I did turn 30 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you old fucker. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm best friends with an old fuck.
One half of the duo is like a senior citizen now, man.
I've been getting white hairs. Like, my beard has been going white. I've been finding...
Have you really?
Yeah, they've been starting to come in. It's a stress, dude.
You are more stressed than I am,
Yeah.
most likely.
It's all good.
I think I heard that people with red hair keep their hair color longer.
Yeah, but you're gonna, when you do go, it'll go white. Mine will do the same because I have a lot of red in my hair.
I'm white enough as it is.
Yes, you're gonna glow like a fucking angel. But yeah, man, it's your birthday. You want to open your gift?
Oh yeah, you got
Well,
me
you
a
can.
gift. Damn, it's weird being on the other side of this now.
There should only be 2 items in there.
Oh shit. This is fucking... Oh my god.
Yeah, I picked that up. I got myself one too. I haven't even opened it yet for myself. So
I was just listening to this last night, actually.
Really?
Domino's.
Fuck yeah, man.
The line from the kitchen table track is, I think, my favorite hip hop song of the year so far.
Yeah,
maybe.
for sure.
It's definitely in like contention. Dude, thank you. This is like,
Yeah,
I
it's
would like never expect this.
Yeah, well, you turned me on to it last time I was over here, and I was like, well, I need to get. By the way, for those that know what we're talking about, it's McKinley Dixon, beloved Paradise Jazz. It's like a kind of a underground hip hop record right now, and
Big focus on live instrumentation
yeah,
on this one.
a lot of
which I'm
jazz. So,
huge fan of that.
and then the other one I know you already have, which I should have kind of expected, and I almost didn't get it because I thought you might pick it up, and you did.
I have a feeling you would.
Sorry. Yeah.
But dude, you knew though.
Yes, I knew.
You fucking knew.
I think that's only the Blu-ray. I think you have the 4K upstairs, so that's going to be the loaner copy that I take.
Thank you, sir. It's Mulholland Drive for everybody listening. The Criterion Collection version. One of my favorite movies of all time.
They were on sale this month, so
I'm really into the Criterion thing now. I've collected a few that I have, like Night of the Living Dead on Criterion now.
Fuck yeah,
and
man.
If I go to a used DVD store and I see one, I usually pick it up.
when you can find them cheap like that, even if you don't even know what it is, just go for it.
But thank you, man.
Yeah.
But, clearly, you know the shit I'm into.
Yeah, I hope so. God damn. If I didn't, that'd be a big red flag.
I still owe you a birthday present, I think. Wasn't I sick around the time that your birthday?
You don't owe me shit. Shut the fuck up.
I definitely do. You always get me good.
I don't like receiving gifts. I'm weird about it. So, but yeah, I don't know that there's gonna be a whole lot of dust jackets or anything that are interesting inside that vinyl record. But it, I think it's like pressed on they use like recycled colors, so you don't know what you're gonna get under there.
Really?
Mine will be different than yours. Yeah.
Oh,
So.
that'll be fun.
And I thought it might be good to have because I don't know how many that they're ever gonna press, and it's an underground record or it's an underground artist, and if he ever like kind of busts in the mainstream. Stuff like that just kind of is coveted.
I actually don't know how many albums are in this person's discography already.
I think it's at 2.
2? Okay. I wasn't sure if that was their debut or not. Great record, though.
Yeah.
Like, I fuck
Pretty
with
short.
it heavy.
It's pretty short and sweet. Yeah, man. I want to talk about first. We never talk about what we drink anymore. Goddamn. We're drinking Sonder Brewing Voss Lime. Maybe it's just German for lime. Who knows?
I cannot tell you.
I had to guess. If I had to guess, I bet that's what it is. Pretty good. It's a German ale with a lot of lime. It's like Bud Light lime, but good. We're talking about Inception tonight. It's about damn time.
This is the first time that a director has appeared twice as a recommendation.
Really?
I think so.
I think you're right.
I mean, we've talked about Nolan many times on unrelated episodes, and we've ranked his filmography on the show, but we've done Interstellar by him, and that's it up until this point. And I don't think any other director has appeared twice. Robert Eggers, maybe, because we did The Northman and The Lighthouse, but it wasn't recommended.
Gotcha.
You've opened up Pandora's box, though.
Okay. So I think it's kind of fitting. I think Nolan's somebody that we both have come to love as two fellow whites in our young years, a couple of white males, or his demographic. Let's be realistic here.
You're not wrong.
He makes films for, I would say, like, his films really resonate with young people.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but I have always felt like his movies are more appreciated by, maybe it's just because I'm through those eyes, but I never hear my fucking dad talking about Christopher Nolan.
We love Nolan. I don't share the same adoration for him that you do. I feel like I can kind of be a little contrarian when we talk about him, but he's made a few of my favorite movies of all time.
Same.
Prestige, Memento.
I don't even remember what we ranked, but I think Prestige is... Did we agree that that was the best one?
I had it ranked 1.
I think I had it ranked 2, and I think I put Interstellar up top.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Just because I had to. But I think if I didn't have such a bias towards Interstellar, I would have picked Prestige. Mm-hmm. Which I think eventually we're going to talk about Prestige, and it'll probably be the first time a director has appeared 3 times. But,
I can see it happening.
You know,
yeah.
Inception's a weird one for me because it was kind of my introduction to him.
I don't know what my introduction to him was. I saw The Dark Knight, but I mean, it was like before I knew who he was. Memento, maybe, for me?
Let me preface, outside of Batman. Batman is more of it was more of a blockbuster. You know what I mean? Like, when I think of Nolan, I do not think of Batman, by the way.
I don't either.
That is not where I associate him, although I do think it's, at the current standing, like, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are, like, the 2 best Batman films that have ever existed, and that's up for debate. I watched Michael Keaton Batman with Jack Nicholson. Kind of fucking hated it.
Kind of fucking hated it?
I kind of fucking hated it. Like, I watched it when I was younger because my stepdad was like, no, this is Batman. Like, this is because that's what they grew up on. Like, that was the one.
I've never seen that one all the way through.
I just did not. I didn't care for it. I appreciated some of the things that they did filmmaking-wise, but story beats were... I don't know. Nolan's Batman trilogy was the first time Batman felt serious. Where, like... Because it was such a modern take. So I don't view him that way because that broke into the mainstream a little bit more than the rest of his films have, I think. Like, he's beloved in film circles, but my family has seen those movies. You know what I mean? But they're not rushing to the theater to see Oppenheimer this weekend or see, they didn't go see Tenet or, Interstellar and all. You know what I mean? It's just not, it's not the same.
Inception kind of feels like the closest thing to, like, that cultural mark, I guess. This movie made a lot of money when it came out.
A lot.
I want to say it crossed, like, the $1 billion mark, but I could be wrong about that.
I remember it breaking the barrier because South Park talked about it. To me, I think that's like a rite of passage for like cultural importance when South Park decides to make an episode around it. And I think Mr. Mackey gets molested at like a boy camp, and they send fucking Freddy Krueger into the dream.
I didn't know about this, actually.
Yeah, it's a weird episode. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, he gets molested by Hootie the Owl, and it's like the camp mascot. And it happened in real life, and so they send in Freddy Krueger to kill Hootie the Owl. Yeah.
I kind of want to see that episode now.
It's fucking hilarious. We might have to pull it up later.
It's on HBO Max, ain't it?
You never fucking know. You never know what night will take us. So, Inception was the first time I recognized his name outside of Batman. He was my introduction to him. Like, this is the first, what feels to me like a Christopher Nolan film. High concept, challenging. Not everybody gets it, but everybody talks about it for some reason. Dicaprio, which helps.
Oh, yeah. I feel like every time Dicaprio is, like, in a new film, it's, like, guaranteed to make money.
He's going to be in Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese on Apple TV.
I'm excited for that one.
I have the book. Haven't cracked it open yet. I found it at, like, a free library.
Really?
I don't know if you know what those are.
Leave a book, take a book type situations.
Found that.
Yeah.
This is, like, the first DiCaprio film we're talking about, too.
That's true. Very weird, right? I can't believe he hasn't come up at all.
I think this is the best DiCaprio looks, like, as far as, like, age. He looks kind of, like, disheveled now.
He does. He has nice hair in this movie, that's for sure. When it comes to his performance in it, I'll have some interesting things to say. I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Inception. I walked to Danbury Cinemas when I was 16 with Olivia to see this.
Danbury Cinemas.
Oh, yeah.
The dirty Danbury Cinemas with the House of the Dead in the lobby. I remember.
Did you see this in theaters?
No.
You were pretty young.
No, I didn't see this one in the theaters. I want to say we ordered it through Netflix in the mail, and then we ended up buying it years later, I think, and I watched it on repeat. Yeah, man, I loved it. It was the first time I felt really challenged by concept, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember when I watched it. When did it come out?
2010.
2010. So I probably watched it shortly after it came out, and I was probably 11. And I remember like really loving it. And like me and my brother were like, we loved it. And we would tell our parents how much we liked it. My mom was like, I don't get it. And I'm like, how do you not get it? It's easy. They go inside of a dream, goddammit.
I remember you telling me about her being confused.
Yeah, poor mom. You know how they are.
I mean, I get it. It is kind of like a convoluted to an adult. It probably would come across like too much to follow.
Yeah, and I think like at the time, I'm trying to think about it. It's like, dude, they were like working their asses off at that time, and like they have no fucking business. Like, oh, I'm gonna like dedicate 3 hours of my life to like mentally straining myself to understand this film. I'm tired.
You know, upon return, it didn't feel like that crazy.
No, not at all. Maybe that's a cultural thing where like
everybody's like,
expect it now.
It's so confusing. Like,
yeah.
Not really. I mean, I think it's pretty tight in terms of how it's told and edited. And
I think at the time it probably was a little bit more challenging. Dude, high concept films were like very rare to like make a lot of money. The plot is like an art house film. Like this would have been made in like the 70s or 80s by like an Italian or a French person, and it like would have been much more surreal. You know what I mean? The direction the art would have taken at that time would have been a little bit more dramatic and surreal and 80s pop color influenced, but conceptually, like this stuff is not. In 2010, we're talking 2010. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird.
What were like the other big movies around that time? I can't even remember. 2010.
In 2010, 82nd Academy Awards. Hurt Locker took Best Picture. Avatar took Best Visual Effects. Christoph Waltz took Best Supporting Actor of Inglourious Bastards. Here, let's do 2011.
Yeah, that would be the year that Inception would be in contention. I think this won Best Cinematography.
The King's Speech won Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
Which everybody forgot about. Black Swan. Okay, we're starting to move into that era, I think.
That feels like it would have been like the beginning, at the very least.
True Grit came out.
I love that movie.
Social Network.
Sounds like a good year.
It kind of was.
You've seen True Grit,
Toy Story 3? Yeah, I have. I watched it when it came out with my dad and The Social Network. We watched all these movies, man. This is like peak right here.
Damn, Social Network is like one of my all-time favorites.
I need to rewatch it. I've seen it recently, I think, like in the last couple of years. I'd probably get more out of it now if I watch it again. It's a weird one, man. It's a great storytelling of like a
really boring
subject, yeah. Like really just like finance and business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Think about it. But I don't know. Inception's a weird one. Like I think to me, and like this might be a weird take, but outside of like Memento, I think like this is like one of the, like his more basic films.
I think you're right about that. I wouldn't say Memento is one of his most basic films, though. It's small in scale, but
maybe it's just production.
Inception is like Ocean's 11, but in a dream.
Yeah, and you know, and that's one of my big points is like I guess I never realized how much it's really just like a James Bond film with like a weird twist.
Nolan clearly wants to direct a fucking James Bond movie.
I know.
And I think you can see that in like the
opening.
In the opening of this, the second and third Batman movie he did. Tenet. He wants to do Bond so bad.
I would throw all kinds of money to go see him direct a Bond film, by the way.
I don't know why they wouldn't just like give it to him.
I don't know. I feel like the direction that James Bond took with Daniel Craig was kind of approaching that. I don't know. Visually and like set and tone, they're very similar to Nolan. So I don't really know that it would be groundbreaking for him to direct something like that.
Okay.
I think like him being inspired by essentially heist films and James Bond and spies and espionage. I don't know that you would need to dumb him down to that level.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know what kind of twist you would throw on it. Now I know like, I'm sure, which like I haven't read anything. I have barely watched any trailers. I haven't heard any reviews of Oppenheimer yet. We're going to go see it next weekend. I'm assuming it's going to be like a docudrama at the end of the day. I don't know anything about it.
I've like watched some reviews and read some stuff. The reaction is like overwhelmingly positive.
Good.
I'm hearing that it might be his best movie.
Good.
You know what? Like a grounded drama. It's kind of like something I've been wanting him to do for a while. Like get away from the spectacle a little bit.
I think we're going to get into it with this film, but something that he really needs is because I think he has a very deep emotional understanding of like the human spirit and like love. I think those all shine through in his films. And I think thematically, he needs something that's a little bit more grounded to like really knock a home run of like being emotionally devastated or like really impacted. And I think Oppenheimer might be that movie.
I think so too. I mean, like, to bring Inception into it, I think this movie, it tries to do that with like the wife and the kids. Like anytime it kind of feels like we're about to break ground there, it's like, oh hey, the heist, we got to get back to it. I'm sure we'll get into that shit as well.
Let's do it.
That felt like a really long intro.
It's been like 20 minutes. It's all right. The film itself, I think my favorite moments are earlier on.
How early are we talking?
Well, to begin with it, like I think the opening of the film, like the first 20 minutes is where the film is at strongest.
I think so. That's probably among my favorite moments.
It's a little small at the time. When the film first opens up, I think the concept is still high, but you're not explained what it is yet, and it kind of feels good. There's no buildup of exposition and dialogue and information that needs to be fed to you. The beginning of the film is you're confused. You don't really know who is Maul. Why are Leonardo DiCaprio and Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this weird Tokyo estate? And why are the fucking walls shaking? You know what I mean? Like it's very loose and fluid, and there's not a whole lot of structure yet. And then you just get like one of the best action runs of the film early on, where I don't really think it comes back until much later in the film.
Yeah, I love this opening sequence a lot. I think the script does a really good job at conveying information slowly, but like in the most interesting way possible. They're basically like doing like a business pitch to this guy. I think there's like a really big aha moment when Sato says, God, what's the line? I know he says like, we're dreaming right now, or something along the lines of that. And like the music cues, and it like feels real good in that moment. Like Inception's a cool movie. I went back and re-listened to our Nolan ranking that we did a few months ago, and I kept talking about how cool Inception is.
It is. I think it is Nolan. I think Nolan's spectacle in this film is among the best. Like, I think Tenet has some of the best action and the worst execution of his plot. And I think this film is kind of like a nice balance of both of those things. Tenet is the same film. It's just the reversal of time instead of a dreamscape. Like, and I like really wanted to love Tenet. That's the thing. And that's what sucks about it. And it's also like, it's not very memorable. Like, it doesn't feel emotionally impactful.
No.
It's like, it's Nolan's, I feel like we're rehashing a little bit of like the ranking that we did, but
that's okay.
It is his, what do you call it? His technical showcase rather than like drama or plot driven. It's his tech demo, to put it like it's his avatar. It's look what I can do.
Yeah.
Overindulgence, and like the story is a little too complicated. There's something missing. There's something missing in Tenet. Like there's something is not resonating to an audience in that film. And maybe it'll age better as time goes on, like through rewatches. And maybe I think some people may have felt that way with Inception too when it first came out. I don't think Inception was received.
I think it was pretty beloved, wasn't it?
I don't know, man.
Everybody talked about this movie like so often back then.
But I don't know that it was ever to the point where it was good. It was like, that was like really weird, you know? Like
I remember loving it.
Oh, I do
in
too.
Theaters. And with Tenet, I don't know if I would say that the movie is complicated. It's like an overcooked idea that's also undercooked at the same time. Yeah. And he's like, that movie just does a really bad job at showcasing anything. Like plot or character, or like everything's really vague, and
it's like less grounded.
Like you say, maybe it'll get better on rewatch, but I'm not dying to go back to it. I don't know when I'll sit down and for 2.5 hours and give it a chance again.
The only thing that like wants me to come back to it is that the ending of the film kind of implies, well, it doesn't just kind of implies, it implies that the ending of the film is the beginning. And that's why I think it's interesting, because I think you could go back and be like, okay, like it's a perfect loop. And I think it works in that way. I think it will get better with rewatches. This is a bold statement, and like it's not that old, so
it probably will get better with rewatches, but God, it's such a dull movie.
But the thing is though, with Inception, I was not as intrigued as I thought I was going to be.
returning to it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think I've seen it too many times, and I've loved it so much for over the years that I don't really know that there was so much for me to get out of it this time around. Now, there were things that I picked up on that I didn't pick up on, like, when I was younger, where, like, they're in, I can't remember his name, God forgive me, but the gentleman that creates the compound that they're all under. Yusef. They're in Yusef's dream at the first lair. It's raining, and they're all saying, you couldn't use the restroom before we started. You know what I mean? Like that, like little things like that where I'm like, oh, okay. Like little quips I picked up on, but like overall, I did not get a ton of new information and new love for the film. And I think that's saying something.
It didn't feel like there was like a deepness here.
I know that I love it still, but I wasn't like filled with that joy and that like, I don't know, something was missing.
I realized this after watching it for the first time after you recommended it. The first time I saw Inception in theaters, 2010. The next time I saw Inception, 2022. And it was like watching it for the first time again. And I loved it. And then you recommended it. And I've watched it 3 times in the last couple of weeks to get ready for this. And I've realized that there's a serious lack of like replay value in this movie.
Yeah.
The movie is all about rules and like explaining the rules.
Exactly.
When you come back to the scenes too often, it's just like, that's all there is.
It's so expository.
Yeah.
The dialogue is expository. And like, it makes sense. Like, the dialogue makes sense in context of the film. I think you can like deeply understand like the rules of the movie. But yeah, you're right. It's a lot of rules.
It never lets up either.
Yeah.
We're like in third act territory. And we're still going like, but wait, here's this new thing.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is the South Park episode like really plays into that, where they're like, it's a dream inside of a dream, inside of a matrix, inside of a dream. And like all this really convoluted, taking like these derailments of, I don't know, like you're in the second act, like you're moving into like the actual mind heist, and we're still doing it. And like it works, and like it's still interesting. But after you've seen like the major story beats and the major action parts, for me, it kind of felt dry at times.
I thought so too.
And I think part of that may be that I think Dicaprio was kind of dry in this film.
Dude, this like might be my least favorite performance by him.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the script or if he kind of just comes across as like a nothing character. And like that's kind of weird to say, even though the whole film is around him. It's like, I got to get back to my kids. And I'm like, but do you? Because it kind of looks like you don't. Like, it kind of looks like you don't need to. You look like you don't give a fuck.
That first scene where he, like, receives the phone call from, like, the grandparents, and, like, they put the kids on the phone, that scene is so weird in tone and dialogue. And, like, DiCaprio's acting, he feels very detached from the material.
God, dude, it was kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. Like, rewatching this film kind of, like, ruined my love for it. And I don't know why that is.
I felt that a little bit, too. I feel like I was able to hone in on the things that weren't working better. Like, because you're so familiar with the plot. Like, the first time that you go through Inception, the pace is fast and the editing is fast. And, like, you don't really have time to stop and think about any of the moments. And then when you're going back through, and as we said, like, the dialogue is very rule-based. So then when those scenes are happening on rewatches, you're not really paying attention to that dialogue. You ever had, like, a loose string on a t-shirt or, like, a sock or something, and you start to pull at it, and it, like, you're basically, like, undoing the,
Yeah, the stitch, yeah.
That's what it kind of feels like in this movie. Like, when you stop and think about anything, it starts to feel weird. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it has, like, these, how do I put this? Like, the pace, like, there are times when I'm like, hey, anybody in their right mind would be like, we got to call the job off. I know it was all fueled by DiCaprio's character of, like, this needs to be accomplished. But to me, it was like, it didn't even look like he gave a shit half the time. I think the best performance in the film is like Maul. I can't remember her name. Forgive me.
I can't either. I know her last name is like Cotillard or something like that.
And I know she appears in other Nolan films. She's in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, she plays Dahlia in that, I think.
Marion Cotillard. Forgive me if I'm butchering it. But let me just say, I think she gives the strongest performance in the whole film.
There are some unique moments with her character where she, like, strangely comes across as, like, a horror antagonist.
Yeah.
And those moments really work for me. I think she was, like, terrible in The Dark Knight Rises.
She was.
And there's, like, some weird line readings here, but it could just be, like, the accent but she had the most interesting things going on, acting-wise, for sure.
Well, like to me, something that's like really frustrating about the film is that, yes, it is a lot of rules. And I think that the characters are kind of like bound by those rules a lot. Like the script writing doesn't really allow like any push or pull of like who's in power. Like, I don't know, the plot's like kind of dry. There's never a moment where I'm like, oh, they're going to lose. There's always an answer for whatever they're doing. I think like that's one of the things that when I come back to it, I'm like, okay, then what's kind of the point of watching this then? You know what I mean? If like they're gonna win, you know? There's never a time where the antagonist being Cillian Murphy's character of, what's his fucking name? I'm so bad at
Fisher. Is he an antagonist?
His subconscious is the antagonist in the film.
Okay, yeah.
Along with Maul. But I never feel, do you ever feel like there's an antagonist in the film outside of, I mean, well, how do I put this? Like Maul is what like stops them along the way, and Cillian Murphy's subconscious, because they're trying to perform Inception on him. Outside of that, I'm like, okay, those are our roadblocks, but Cillian Murphy's subconscious is literally just goons,
completely faceless,
and Maul is
like she's not real.
She's not real, exactly. And then so when you put that with Dicaprio's character, he is the source of her presence in the film. And then you pair that with DiCaprio's performance. It's kind of dry. You know what I mean? Like his performance isn't strong enough or emotionally heavy enough for you to be like, Maul's here. This is a broken man. He doesn't feel broken.
No, not at all.
And like that's frustrating. And so like I don't feel like there's like a weight to like any of the events going on. And then they end up just being like a James Bond shoot 'em up with high concept. And so like that's like really aggravating.
There are moments in the film where 2 or 3 essential characters are shot within these dreams. I know Sato is early on, like in the rain dream, and then Fisher,
at the first layer, yeah.
Fisher's is shot, right? Like in
the
third one
when he's getting ready to open the door.
And it does not feel like there's any tension related to them being injured.
Here's a quick thought. Part of something that I notice, I never felt like there was a solid film score behind the movie.
Yeah.
Ever. Out of all the Nolan films and all of the Hans Zimmer scores that I've listened to, I never felt like there was like any drive behind the score. I don't know why. It was like there was never like a theme that was being played, and like there was hints of it. I mean, the tiniest hints of like the chord progression of time played throughout the film. But I never felt like there was a route to what was going on. There was no direction for the score to take in this environment of the film. And so at the end of the film, when you get to hear like the main theme of time, when, you know, he's getting off the plane and they've all accomplished and yada, yada, it feels like, oh, here it is. It's finally here. But it was like, where was that the whole time? It doesn't feel as impactful to me for some reason. Like it's like kind of like the tamest Hans Zimmer score I've ever heard.
It was very uncharacteristic of him, where like I think 90% of the movie, a lot of it just sounded like sonic wallpaper.
Like
you have these bassy tones, which like got memed a ton around this time. But then like the rest of the stuff was just like, it was so quiet behind the scenes. Like it felt like it had no drive. It had no motifs that were memorable.
Yeah, like the action was the action bits were just like the dun 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 dun. Like, you know, just like a quick tempo. Never felt like there was a lot of inspiration behind what was going on for some reason. And I don't know if it's because the material itself of the story is too hard to. Granted, when they were playing music through headphones for the dreamers for sound cues,
I love that.
You know, those come in and that makes things interesting. But I never felt moved by the score, which was like really frustrating to me. God, we're like really dogging on this fucking film. But
we'll get to the positive stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's good to knock it out early, I guess.
I'm actually glad that we're on this wavelength tonight, because I thought that I was going to bring that energy.
And I was going to say, fuck you.
I thought I was going to be a buzzkill.
No, you're fine. I think the thing with Nolan for me is that I'm kind of like really biased on him. And I think when we come back and we revisit him, it allows me to like kind of reassess. Because I think the approach of his films, the spectacle, it's really hard to find yourself grounded at first. You know, and I think you can like really easily fall in love with one of his films. I gave Tenet like would give Tenet, like when I first watched it, like a 7, and now I'm like more like a 5. I don't even know, dude. Like it's not even that good, and like I want to rewatch. I want to rewatch it. I really do.
I think I felt like within like the 2 or 3 range on that one. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was like in a bad mood that night, but I remember like my blood boiling during the movie.
You are getting mad.
I was legit angry.
Let me put it this way. I don't know if you feel this way, because I'm starting to feel this way with his films, is that he works with the same actor so many times, and his tone of films are very similar, that like certain scenes start to blend together for me. Like, oh, that's from another movie.
You know, when we see Fisher for the first time, and like he's going to visit his dad in this like hospice care area, it looks like they reused a set from like Batman. It's like we're in Wayne Manor right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that really threw me off is that I was expecting the Michael Caine from Tenet to come in at times. And I don't know why. I was like, oh, it's Michael Caine in a suit at lunch. And I'm like, no, that never came. Like, that's from Tenet. It's blending together. I think tonally the films are so similar that like you can kind of like lose those two together a little bit.
Well, what's the difference between the fucking character?
Exactly.
Now that I think about it, Nolan clearly loves Michael Caine.
Yeah.
And I do too.
Everybody loves Michael Caine. He's the best.
He's great. But weirdly, when I'm thinking about some of the times he's appeared in Nolan movies, he usually shows up in a scene sitting down and like that'll be it.
Yeah.
Like I think in Tenet he literally doesn't stand up. Like he's at a restaurant and
like,
that's it.
Obviously he plays Alfred, but I think it's a little bit differently.
He's way more active in The Prestige too. Like he's a pretty active character in that one. But usually it's like hey, Michael Caine stopping by in the movie. Everybody wave to Michael.
I know we haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, but goddamn, The Prestige is Nolan at his best.
I love The Prestige.
It's the best. It's his best. I want to see Hugh Jackman come back in a Nolan film.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Bale and Hugh Jackman in that film were, I think it was like on the same level of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with
they had good chemistry.
It felt so good. And
damn, those were good performances too.
There's something special about that film where, again, I'm sure we'll talk about it at length. There's something really special about that film, like the setting, the time period, the concept, the play on magic, like sci-fi. Fucking Bowie's in that film.
Is that the only time Nolan's gone before modern times?
I think so. Yeah. That's a film that like is unique among his filmography. I don't know. My biggest thing, I think what's really holding this film back is Dicaprio. Because Dicaprio should carry this film, and I feel like the parts move around him rather than like are being emoted through him. There should have been more tension in like, we're getting like down into like limbo territory. I'm like, that was really fun and interesting. Like the concept of like, oh, we're down at the lowest level of subconscious and we're going to like build reality around subconscious at this level, him and Maul. But God, he felt like so detached.
I don't understand what was happening here with him. Is it because maybe he works better when there's like more to chew on in a scene? I think Nolan's scripts and editing kind of go hand in hand with like, you never really sit in on a scene in a Nolan movie. Like it's very floaty. Like we're like moving very quickly to the next thing at all times.
You kind of hop. You're kind of like floating on the top of the surface. You're never like delving down into like deep emotion. And I think it's a point may have brought in when we talked about Interstellar, where Anne Hathaway is like talking about love and like how love can be felt through space and time and all this shit. And like, I think it was like Nolan trying to explain this concept of like love will prevail and like love is in the fabric of the universe and all this shit. But it doesn't ground itself enough in the script. You're bouncing on it like quickly and you're moving on fast. And there's never time to sit in on a scene.
Interstellar was better about it than Inception is though.
Yes.
When I think about Interstellar, that one has like some pretty emotional scenes, and I felt like the characters had character in that movie, or at least McConaughey did, and Murph.
Yeah, hell, I even think Michael Caine did at times. Although I don't know if we talked about it, but like him weeping for some reason was like,
that was weird.
It was a weird. I don't think that was like a great emotional performance by Caine in that film, where like he weeps and he's like, he talks about he lied and he failed and all this shit, and it's like, to me it was like not great. I don't know if it's like the script or I don't know if it's performance. And I also think that Nolan might be too nice of a guy to like pull certain things from actors. We know Dicaprio outside of Nolan. Scorsese,
Tarantino. Many movies.
You're talking about directors that are like kind of like crazy, like in their directing style. Like they're directing the film. I think Nolan might lend himself to such a passion for concept that sometimes I don't feel like he's so behind the camera at times, where he's almost acting as a cinematographer as well, where I don't know that he demands certain performances from his actors.
That's a really good point, actually. Every time I've seen video footage of Nolan, I haven't seen a lot, but he's a very mild-mannered, polite, shy-seeming.
Mm-hmm.
You really do kind of need like your Kubrick,
obsessive director,
and of course not to that level, because I know he was like a maniac.
My Way or the Highway. He needs a little bit of that.
Yeah, you can pull like a Fincher and do like 150 takes of like the most basic scenes.
Yeah,
but Nolan, I could see him not pushing hard enough.
And like, okay, so Dicaprio in Wolf of Wall Street, dude, that's Dicaprio at his best. That and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think those are Dicaprio. Like those are his two best performances.
Yeah, those
like
are
from what I've seen and what I think. Like Shutter Island, it's a weird movie.
I rewatched that one recently. It did not hold up too good, in my opinion.
DiCaprio's emotional performance in that movie is a lot better than this. That's my point. We're like the only time I felt like really emotionally attached to anything was like when Maul was like crying in DiCaprio's arms, like. And the only reason I got kind of like emotional was the fact that I'm thinking about I was like thinking about like when Elizabeth is gonna die, or like you know what I mean, or like,
oh Lord,
I'm like that's like my lover and my friend and my and I'm like Jesus, I don't know that was the only thing like grounding me to that was like I can think about like what it's like to hold Elizabeth in my arms. I'm like that was the only thing keeping me there,
and that was like you doing it and like not the
film, and it just didn't resonate quite like I thought it was going to. It was so strange. We've kind of like dogged on the film a little bit so far, and like that's fine. But like some of my favorite moments are like some of the action pieces. Do you have like a favorite action moment? Is there like a sequence that you love the most?
A favorite action moment? I might need to think about that for a second. Well, what's your favorite one? Maybe that would help me.
Well, I guess like my favorite sequence is when DiCaprio meets Tom Hardy's character when they're running from.
This is the best one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for some reason, also like just the style. I love the fashion direction in this film. I think the color palette of this setting and where they're at and the tempo that happens throughout this scene. I don't know. It feels, very James Bond-esque, but it feels like there's like a Latin flair to everything going on around. And where are they at? I think in South Africa.
Mombasa?
Yeah. I like Tom Hardy and DiCaprio's dialogue leading up into this action scene as well.
This is one of the better dialogue scenes, for sure.
Like, there's something about DiCaprio and Tom Hardy being like, first and foremost, like those two should be on screen sometime together, please. But they're both like very comfortable in the fact that like they're gonna have to run for their lives, and so that that's fun for me. Like fuck yeah, they can do whatever they want.
I think this might be my favorite action sequence too, and I think there's a reason that it's not anything else in the movie. It's because it's not like centered around gunplay. Like it's a chase sequence. For one, that's like unique because there's not really any other chase sequences in the movie that I can think of that don't involve like the hero shooting back at somebody. I don't know.
It's also grounded outside of a dream.
That's true. DiCaprio squeezing into the corridor, like the claustrophobic.
His fucking face that he makes. I laugh at it every time I see it.
Like that's legit. That's one of the moments where the film comes closest to like good tension.
I agree completely.
And maybe that has to do with like I hate confined spaces as well.
Oh yeah, there's claustrophobia.
In some of the other action sequences, I feel like the gun stuff kind of turns into like a noisy distraction. Like it feels like there's like no real. I hate saying this because I know it's like their dreams, but there's like no logic or like tactics to the gun scenes. It's just like you mentioned House of the Dead earlier. Like they're just like a shooting gallery.
Exactly.
Know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, in like the third level in the snow, it's like
it's not my favorite.
I feel like a Call of Duty level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really boring campaign shit. I think the setting is amazing, and I think like the set design and the costumes are really interesting. Visually, it's like some of my favorite. But the hotel, the second level, that's some of the best action. Like you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the rotating corridor, the gravity shifts, like all that stuff is God, I wish I would have like appreciated it more when I was watching it, but like that stuff at the time was like a feat. Like it was something to like behold.
That's one of the more iconic scenes from the movie. It is great. That effect is amazing, and the choreography of Joseph Gordon-Levitt like having this zero gravity fight, that actually might be my favorite action sequence of the film, with the Mombasa sequence being second maybe.
I also think that why the Mombasa scene is my favorite is probably because the pacing is still kind of slow for the film. In those scenes with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and them rotating through the corridor, it is amazing, and it's good choreography and good action, and it feels like really well deserved. But also, there's too much other shit going on around that scene.
It cuts away too much.
Yeah. And so it's the editing style of like them all being on like separate layers. It kind of detracts the mind from like appreciating it. I think it's like a kind of a fault in the editing at the time. It feels like, yeah, we know it's happening, but we keep going back to other shit.
Like one punch will be thrown and it's like, all right, now we're going to go see what Dicaprio's doing.
Yeah. It's just, that's kind of frustrating.
It is. I think the movie has a hard time like taking a moment to breathe and like just let something play out for more than a few seconds. I don't know, because I think the scenes are good, but it's just too chopped up at times. But then at the same time, the editing is like really good. Maybe that style of editing should only be in like certain sequences.
Yeah.
Instead of like the whole film being like super floaty.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that he needs to learn. Like, he doesn't let his films like ebb and flow very well. He kind of just like pukes on you.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. Like, I think that editing style is really cool, but it's just a little overused. I like to sit in a scene and like people just talk for a few minutes.
And we're kind of spoiled in that way where he's hard to compare with other directors. Let's just say that. I mean, I guess we don't preface that enough. Like his style is so out of left field that grounding him next to other directors, first and foremost, like other concepts of filmmaking, like the only thing that I can even like compare it to his style, his storytelling is like Everything Everywhere All at Once. And that film doesn't take itself seriously a good 80% of the film. And it's working in the film's favor, where Nolan films are like serious at the maximum level. Like everything is a big deal.
Needs to loosen up a little bit.
God, a Nolan comedy. Good God. That'd be fucking hilarious. That'd be wild.
I think he could maybe do it. He showcases comedy in his writing. I think all Nolan movies kind of have this very dry British style of humor.
Yeah.
Like, very dry, like characters kind of roasting each other, but like in a very mild-mannered way.
Of course.
And like everybody talks like that in these movies.
Yeah.
But like I kind of like it.
It's kind of funny to think about it. I guess he might be so inspired by like espionage and James Bond. I'm like, yeah, he's a Brit. Of course. Why didn't I fucking think of that?
I forget that sometimes. Did you know that when he was first scripting out this movie, he envisioned it as a horror movie?
What the fuck? No.
God, I wish we could have seen that.
There was like inklings of it with like Maul's character. Like it could have been.
Yeah. And like those moments were like, pretty strong. Like the jump scares and stuff.
Dude, I felt awful when he was explaining that she had declared herself like sane by 3 psychologists. She had it made. Like she figured it out. Like he was fucked. And I guess like that's something that's a door I want to open, because there are times in the film where I don't really know that I believe DiCaprio's character.
Oh, you think like we might have a little bit of a unreliable narrator type deal going on here?
And I want you to think about this for a second, because DiCaprio's character being as dry as he is in terms of like trying to explain all this emotional shit that his character has gone through, I don't know that he's actually that empathetic. And I think he kind of comes across as a little bit of a psychopath. And then when you talk about him performing Inception on his wife, he kind of seems like a fucked up character, where it's like, okay, he performs Inception on his wife thinking that her reality is not real. And it's like, why would you do that? And I know he explains it in the film of like, we had to get out of limbo and like all this. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? I'm like, and then he kind of like, oh, he's victorious and he gets to go back to his wife and, go back to his kids and come back home to America. And I'm like, I don't know. Like there was something really strange about it. And I don't know that this is really a layer that the film is trying to explain, but to me, I'm like, he is a little bit of an unreliable narrator. You know what I mean? Like all this exposition with his ex-wife, Maul, it's through him. It's through nobody else. And so you kind of just have to like believe him. And then, like, he's so emotionally detached. And I don't know that if that's just the fact that like DiCaprio is just emotionally detached as himself as an actor in this film. But tonally, he comes across as like a fucking psychopath. And everybody around him is just like, okay,
there's a lot to process and all that. That's interesting. I mean, like, in the film, it is kind of explicitly said, not said, but shown to you that he's a bit of a liar. Like, he lies to the team about a lot of things along the way.
He's like, don't do that, but then he does it himself.
And I think the film pays very little attention to the fact that they're all, like, kind of criminals. I don't know how to read that factoring into what you just said. You know what I mean? Like, how intentional is that?
There's something really strange about what's happening. Tonally, it feels so uncomfortable. And I have other things to talk about, like something that like is confusing for me is the fact that like the ending of the film, like implying that the top may not turn over. Like, we're going to get to that, but like there's something there where I know it might just be like Nolan being like fucking around with the audience, but at the same time I'm like, did somebody just perform Inception on DiCaprio?
I've read a little bit about the theories on this. I don't know if you've read the same ones, but
I haven't read any theories about the film. So
okay, this is like
know.
Coming from the dome.
From the dome. I have no idea.
Okay. There are theories out there that Maul is actually alive and DiCaprio is the one stuck in the dream, and she's trying to
bring him out by like making him kill himself.
Yes.
Okay.
And like maybe the stuff where she falls off the balcony like didn't happen, but like she really was in the dream. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't read a whole lot into it. It's hard to say because, as we've already said, it's a little dry at times, or it's kind of hard to read into subtext.
Okay, here's the thing. I want to bring this up because after seeing Mulholland Drive, I'm like, okay.
You're trying to bring that here.
You can no, but seriously. You can open up the door, multiple possibilities, and them all feel true because the performances were so strong emotionally all over the spectrum. Like in that film, you have like deep sadness and like regret, and like you have like joy, you have, like passions of love. You have like really weird,
extreme fear.
Yeah, like maniac levels of the social dialogue, and like it was like so bizarre to the extreme surrealism. Like it's.
Yeah, that movie's fucking crazy.
It's the peak. That's something that Nolan doesn't do, but his concepts open that door. But his films are so fucking dry with dialogue delivery. Maybe it's a misunderstanding that we have. Maybe Nolan is doing what David Lynch is trying, like what he does best, but he's coming from like maybe his expression is dry because that's his personality and you don't pick up on that. You know what I mean though? Like,
yeah.
I don't know how to explain that, where they could be similar, but Nolan is an introvert. So it comes across in his films much drier than what Lynch does. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. And there could be something there. Maybe there is something there. I have no idea. The thing about that theory and trying to apply it with Nolan is that it doesn't feel like there's like any subtext here. When we did Mulholland Drive, there was like the dream logic, and then there was like the subtext, the Hollywood shit that we got into.
Yes.
Like, I don't really see like
thematics, like commentary.
What is the theme of Inception? I guess there is like marriage and children, but like is it explored?
Okay. All right. This is a good point because Nolan's themes are some of the weakest of all the directors we've like mentioned tonight.
He has great ideas, but the deepness is where I get lost with him.
He has some of the worst thematical execution of like all the directors. Like even when we talk about Interstellar being like one of my favorites and like The Prestige being one of my favorites, his films are not thematic. When I think about Hans Zimmer scores, they like shine through, I would say 90% of the films he composes for. Some of my favorites being The Last Samurai, Kung Fu Panda 2, which I know you haven't seen, but it'll come eventually. Like you're ready for it mentally, but because I think you'll give like the same level of appreciation that you do to the films that we talk about now to that film.
I would be so much better at reviewing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his films that Hans Zimmer composes around, they really emote a theme. When I think of The Last Samurai, hearing the main theme, I can feel that movie's story through the music. in Kung Fu Panda as well, which I don't even know the directors. There's multiple directors on those films, but I know what the theme is, and I know where that music comes through in. In Nolan films, it's around the technicalities. Hans Zimmer is composing around Nolan's technicality, not his theme.
Yes.
And that's what happens in Dunkirk, and it's what happens in Interstellar.
In Dunkirk, it's like the ticking, right?
Yes. And Interstellar is it's the space. It's all about space. That's
a good score for that movie, though.
It is. And
that's a great score.
And like that is, I think that's when Nolan and Hans Zimmer have like met the closest, because I think thematically Interstellar is Nolan's best film. And so they pair really well together.
Yeah, that one feels really good. You know the theme from that movie where McConaughey drives through the
cornfield chase? Mm-hmm.
The music in that scene like gives me goosebumps. Sometimes it pops up in like random TikToks, and I was like start feeling it all of a sudden.
It's when Nolan and Zimmer met the best, and I think it has that staying power. And I think like there's a reason why that song is so popular for people to play on piano. I love it. I know how to play it on fucking guitar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's saying something. That's when they've met the closest together. And I think in this film, I think that is kind of commentating that observation of like, there's nothing here. And I think that's describing how little theme there is.
That's why the score is not great here.
Yeah. Well, and it's also just saying like, there's nowhere for us to find a ton of theme in. It's so bizarre. I don't feel like the guilt that Dicaprio is talking about, like he's talking about all this guilt that he feels. I'm like, I don't really feel that in this movie. You know what I mean?
You're presenting a lot of really interesting ideas over the last few minutes.
Sorry.
By the way.
It's just like, I don't think
it's just not right for some reason.
You know what I mean?
It's uncharacteristically clunky for Nolan.
It's like theme and like concept. But it's not as bad as Tenet. And it's not as good as Interstellar or The Prestige.
Yeah.
It's like kind of mediocre in like his best attributes.
What did we rank this one?
I wish I knew. I think I have it on my phone still.
I just listened to it to catch up on. I was curious to see how we felt then and how we feel now. I think this one ended up like in the middle of the pack somewhere, like 5 or 6 maybe.
And it should, because I think while it has been like kind of like popularity wise, I feel like
it's like one of his most memorable, but
I think it's getting buried down underneath Batman and Interstellar. Because when I think about Nolan now, I think about like how popular Interstellar got over the years. Like, I feel now that Interstellar is more popular than it has ever been when it first came out. You know what I mean? And like this movie when it came out was extremely popular, and now I feel like no one talks about it. It's like it's this weird thing surrounding his culture.
It was very of the moment.
Yes. And I almost feel the same way with The Prestige, but I think The Prestige was like honestly one of the most groundbreaking films. Dude, The Prestige, what was it, 2008 or 2009?
It was in between Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
2010.
Dark Knight came out in 2008.
Dude, The Prestige was 2006.
2006.
Okay, dude, that's so fucking early for how good it is.
That's crazy. So Batman Begins was like 2004 then, probably.
I don't understand how Prestige has a 76 on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's insane. Interstellar has a 70-something too.
Audience score is 92.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I don't, like, when I think about The Prestige, like, I don't think I have any negatives to say about it, like, screenplay-wise or anything.
I think Prestige is Nolan's best film. Truly, I think maybe it's the score that's not as good in that film.
I don't know. I don't think that would bring it down to a 70%, though.
But that's like that's his tightest script.
I think that and Memento have his tightest scripts.
I agree. Oh, dude, it's Nolan before all the money, man. It's Nolan before he got the humongous budget.
Dude, did Batman, like, fuck him up? Did getting Batman fuck up Nolan?
God, fuck, we're getting into it.
Although,
okay.
The Prestige was after Batman Begins.
Okay, but no. The Prestige is before Batman Begins.
Are you sure?
Batman Begins is like...
I swear it's like 04, 05.
Oh, it is 05. I don't know, dude. It's Nolan... Because the studio gives him the money at that... Like, after the popularity of Batman Begins, though...
Is it the money, though?
I think that, like, he has the ability to do... Because the way I feel like Nolan designs... This is just me, and it may not be his process, and this is just out of left field. This is an assumption. The way he, like, constructs a story, I think he constructs a story a lot of the times out of, like, stunts he wants to do. I think he operates from the camera.
What, like he has the storyboards written before he has the script or something?
You know what I mean? Like, I think he has, like... I always have felt like his directing style is that he really focuses on like things he wants to accomplish with the equipment, and then he builds a story around that.
And that's like kind of his strength. That's kind of what makes him unique.
Exactly. But when he has been proven time and time again to be a profitable director to studio and investors, it is like as his career has gotten longer and longer and he's become more and more profitable and reliable as a director, them giving the money allows him to direct with that style to the fullest. And so like his scripts are getting weaker as time has moved on.
Now that I think about it, The Dark Knight is the first movie that has the really floaty Nolan feel to it. And I like The Dark Knight a lot.
Right.
He starts going too far sometimes with it.
He starts, because his characters start operating an idea a little too much. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, he writes the characters around the concept and he writes the characters around the stunt. Because in Inception, and we're feeling it, the rules are always there. The character always has to explain the rules. Characters that don't really need to explain the rules, that's not like really purposeful dialogue. It's the characters explaining the concept. That's why I don't think he really writes a strong script anymore, quite like he used to with his earlier films. Because his earlier films felt like the David Fincher, the fully realized concept meeting a really, like, they're noir films, dude. The Prestige and Memento, they're noir.
Where'd
like,
all the grit go?
I'm telling you, man, it's when you don't have the money, you have to sell it more. And so now his films are like a lot of just like tech demo. And it kind of like blows because he's operating in that concept area too much because the money's there to accomplish those crazy in-camera practical effects.
And what makes or breaks the film is the concept good? Like, that's the question.
Yeah, well, it's like also if the concept can be cool, but we talked about it in Tenet, like talking about Tenet, we talk about Tenet all night, but the concept is crazy high, but like the dialogue is some of the worst. And what's even funnier about it is the dialogue in that film is unintelligible. You can't hear it. And so what Nolan is doing now, he's operating from just the concept. He doesn't even want you to hear the characters that well. You know what I'm talking about? Like, he's not even trying.
The main character's name is the protagonist.
Exactly.
He's like going so bare bones with the scripts now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I think this is the film that we're really starting to transition into that era.
This one mirrors Tenet so much. Inception is basically just if Tenet got like the concept right. Inception is gliding so hard on how good this idea is. And like, I think we've shit on this movie a lot so far. Unexpectedly so.
But it's not but it doesn't mean I don't like it.
When the movie is in heist mode, when it's purely about like the espionage, it's like Nolan at his best.
Yes.
Or among his best, at least.
And I think it kind of mirrors and like is so adjacent to noir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's an English politeness to it, a calm, reserved, masculine energy behind the scripts. That's just the way those films emote. They're so close. And it's probably because of like the English film era of like the 60s and the 70s, even into like the 80s, where those films are being made around the same time as like The Godfather, like even going all the way back to Hitchcock. You know what I mean? Like, those are where those roots lie for like Nolan's directing style.
Piss break.
Okay, so something that I don't really feel like we've done very well is like kind of talk about like what we like. It's like a family member that you love. They do all these things wrong, and here's why, and they're fucking insane. And I hate them. And what they said at the fucking picnic of 2013 has made me mad for the last 10 years, but I still love them.
But you love them. Yeah. I feel like when we have mentioned that tonight, it's actually been off air, like in between our, the piss breaks and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, I like Inception.
I know you mentioned earlier, but like the biggest thing in the film, I think that carries it through and through is the concept. Something that I wanted to get into it with you is like the concept of like the mind. I think like this is something that Nolan maybe inadvertently I don't know that like he keeps like Eastern philosophy at the forefront of his mind, because okay, it's like Western philosophy in like terms of like religion and like Christianity. God is separate. You know what I mean?
Where are we going?
We'll get there. in Western civilization, Christianity being the most popular, and like even like in Muslim and Islamic, God being an external, and in Eastern philosophy, God is internal, like of the mind. So when I think about Nolan films, I think he's, especially this film in particular, like the concept of like dreams and subconscious levels of thought and intention being carried out through Inception, you know, the act of Inception, of planting an idea so deep in someone's subconscious that on the very far end of their actions lies the idea that they're expressing and emoting from. Maul being the whole reason that she wanted to die was because that at the deepest layer of subconscious, literally below the dream state, Cobb planted the idea of her reality not being real. Like her literally developing like schizophrenia and, you know, complete derealization and disassociation from reality. Planted at the farthest, deepest point of your subconscious. It's like, okay, well, in Eastern philosophy, like the farther you look in, the more you'll see God.
This is something we got into like on our Modest Mouse podcast, like God is you.
Yeah, like that consciousness and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is purposefully trying to entertain those ideas in that philosophy and kind of like express himself through the film, but I feel like that's where those ideas lie. His perception of humanity and consciousness and love are a little bit more Eastern philosophy rather than like Christianity or like Islam or Muslim. Like, you know what I mean? Like it feels like he's so, the way he's trying to express the human spirit is so
what's like Eastern about like the way like some of those concepts are explored
Expressed
here. Yeah.
Well, like for me, when you're talking about like dreams and like subconscious levels, like some people in certain Eastern philosophies believe that like dreams and subconscious levels of thought are like where your soul is. This is how I am, by the way. This is how I view reality. I don't know if I've ever really expressed it this way to you, but like when you can consciously observe some of your subconscious levels of thought, I think you realize how like you're getting a little bit closer to your soul. There's something like deep within you, in your soul, that like you're kind of looking at. Because I think it's like hard to get down to that level with yourself. Imagine with other people, but like with yourself, it's like, I don't know, you don't consciously observe a lot of what's going on in your life on a daily basis. Like
You get too caught up in the motion of everything.
you forget to, in the moment, consciously observe and be mindful about what's happening. I think in his films, particularly this one, it kind of expresses those ideas of like when you're down in those subconscious levels, that's where you're at. That's where you start.
Okay.
And then it makes its way all the way out onto the other end of reality where you operate your ideas that are at your smallest level of core of how you view the world, your soul, basic bare bone understanding of the reality. It carries itself all the way out on the other end of like your actions. And it kind of is in this film where you kind of can feel that idea.
Okay.
And it's visualized. It's visualized in a very, very high production value way of like fucking espionage, CGI, crazy practical effect film. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I have a vague understanding of
That's
that.
like-
and sorry, when it comes to like philosophy and the religion and the God and the looking within, I'm really terrible at shit like that.
We have a lot of conversations off the air.
We do, and it's usually like you explaining a thing to me and me nodding along, and that's cool. Like I like that. I like to learn about that shit. But I feel like me trying to engage in the debate, I've been thrown into the deep end of the pool with like concrete slabs attached to my feet.
I know. I don't have a lot of people that I talk to about stuff like this.
Do you think like Nolan showcases that like in a
I don't know that it's
efficient
like
way?
No, but I think for me,
Like you think the idea is there?
yeah, I think like there's, again, like I think he's like so introverted, and I think his like concepts, like he has to have some understanding of these philosophies. They root themselves somewhere in his life. These ideas are so high concept that I think he has to feel a certain way about the world to like effectively communicate some of like these are extremely high concept. He's like a physicist. Like he wants to understand science and he wants to like express that in film, like time and space, and dreams. He's very scientific and technical. That like curiosity feels to me like very Eastern. It's not
like you think it's like kind of like lingering behind all of the rigid stuff that like, is showcased the most.
Sorry, I don't know if I expressed that well enough, but like essentially, I think everybody has a personal philosophy. And I think that's might be where he's kind of coming from. Maybe. Just an inference and an assumption. God, he'd be a great interview. He needs to be interviewed more.
I don't really know a whole lot about like him, like the man himself.
He's really bad at marketing himself, like as a person.
Maybe he doesn't want to.
It's his name,
honestly.
You know? Yeah, and you might be right.
I mean, like you said, he's an introvert. He's an
introvert. Yeah.
Mild-mannered.
Yep. Things we like.
Things we like. You know, we've talked about like how dry things are, or just how like certain things aren't explored enough in this. On the contrary, I think that like the actual like beat for beat plot is actually incredibly strong.
Yeah, the pacing in the film is great for like how much stuff they have to shove in your face. It's pretty damn good for like the pacing of the film.
It hits some really interesting ideas, like exploring Cillian Murphy, or is that his name? Mm-hmm. Jesus, I don't know why that felt so unfamiliar when it left my mouth. Cillian Murphy. They're exploring like this like father-son dynamic, and I feel like it almost actually hits something more than it feels like if this had been explored a bit more. It could have been like the actual like
theme.
It felt like this was the closest it got to emotion,
and like that's the thing. Cillian Murphy's character has the strongest emotionally. Everybody loves the father-son. Everybody. I don't know.
It's easy to do.
It is,
and when it's well done, it's excellent
and it's beautiful. It is the strongest moments. Like when Cillian Murphy like cries at the bedside, I'm like, fuck yeah, man, there it is. And like I loved it, and I also loved the fact that like I don't know if I loved it, but like it's also Nolan. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, like that's great and emotional, but Tom Hardy's like smirking, we did it. You know what I mean? Like don't forget this is an espionage film. Like it's just a fucking heist. But it could have been that. You needed more of it. Because all those explorations that were happening with Cillian Murphy's character was like, oh yeah, it's Tom Hardy pretending to be the uncle. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you needed more of it. Maybe like 20 more minutes of like more Cillian Murphy stuff, and then it would have felt like everybody else was moving around this character. But it's also like Dicaprio's film.
That's true, and it's kind of hard to talk about because I think if they would have went in the direction of exploring Cillian Murphy and the father-son dynamic, that would have elevated like the heist element of the movie. Where like when a lot of the time when we go into these dreams, it's like, hey, there's guys with guns that just showed up.
Or like malls derailing the whole operation.
Yeah.
It's never like you could have explored Cillian Murphy's character more.
How do we like infiltrate the nuances of this
subsections of his subconscious? You know what I mean? Like there was a little bit of that where like, but it was so early on in the film where like this was like moments that echoed Tenet, where early on in the film they're like trying to explain to you really fast. I mean, this is after the first big action scene and your brain hasn't calmed down yet, and they're saying, oh yeah, well, the subject that we're trying to perform Inception on, they'll create a place in their mind where they're trying to store these secrets away, and then it'll appear in the dream as a vault or like a safe. And that is true for what they were trying to do to Saito in the beginning of the film before he hires them. And then at the end with Cillian Murphy, he opens the vault door, and like, you know, that's
like he's doing it himself.
And you know, same with Dicaprio with Maul. There's a safe. She locked something deep inside of her, tucked away, that he went and found, and he changed. That was his Inception. This is going to get a little off topic, but I'm going to derail my thought. But like, this is the same thing that Tenet tries to do. At the beginning of the film, this is exactly the same level of exposition and like trust that you give to the director right from the beginning. But Tenet does that the whole way through. The beginning of this film feels more like Tenet than any other film that I've seen by Nolan.
Yeah, like you get the big like action set piece, and then like the explanation comes afterward. Pretty much.
But like just you suspend the disbelief a lot. They could have done more with that concept of like people lock things that they don't want other people to know deep inside of them, and then what if you could change that darkest secret or like that deepest level of operation by going in and changing that for somebody? Like that's all great. those like visuals of it's a safe that we have to go inside and like the heist, it adds that espionage. But you could have done more with like Cillian Murphy's character of trying to get into the nuances of like maybe even like memories and like how people associate, you could have opened up that door of father-son relationships so much more by saying, okay, Cobb talks about rebuilding memories with Maul. It's like, okay, you could do that with Cillian Murphy's character too. Like go in and try to change his memories. You know what I mean? Like there was, but you were only going down to like subconscious levels. But like you could have overcomplicated the film too.
Well, like you said, it's DiCaprio's film, and they had to like give him something too.
Exactly.
Dead wife and children. I don't know. There's a few too many ideas going on here. Maybe
classic Nolan.
This kind of feels similar to like when we did Warrior.
Yeah, and The Wrestler. But here's the thing. Is that like a script problem? Is that like on the beginning of the film, the direction that it takes? The strongest ideas lie with the supporting characters. That's kind of why the main character feels like he's always being sidestepped in the film.
You think so?
Yeah. Do you ever feel like DiCaprio's presence is so weak in this film?
Well, I feel like it's trying to give him a lot, and it's just not working.
Yeah.
Like, not the fact that like he has nothing to do. He does a lot, but like it falls flat for some reason.
I just think it's a script issue. Where like at the end of the day, it probably should have been like Cillian Murphy's movie, but like DiCaprio was the face that sold it. But like that's also like when you get into casting, it's like DiCaprio's not going to do that. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like. You want to put me in the center of the movie poster, but then it be Cillian Murphy's movie?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the strongest idea is lying with the supporting character.
This is a weird movie.
It is, man. It is. It's really bizarre.
The idea is so fucking strong, but there's like, have you ever heard the phrase "the music between the notes"?
Yeah.
Like
there is none.
The little in betweens, like that's empty here. But like,
oh, dude,
but like
that's a beautiful saying, by the way.
Like the major foundation here is like incredibly strong.
Yes. But you're right. There is no music between the notes. Like when you play like a really moving piece of music, or you listen to a really moving piece of music, where like you feel like your soul's singing. You're right. There's like something. The silence is like really really loud. You know what I mean? You can feel the in between of the expression. There's not a lot of that here.
Yeah.
It's just really dry. And I also just think that setting, pacing, tone. It is like essentially at the end of the day a spy movie. It's not trying to be this powerful, emotional, heavy.
Yeah, but then why go the missing children and the dead wife route and the...
Exactly. Oh, he's so weird. He's a weird director, man.
This is like kind of memed up on like review sites and stuff, but are you aware of like the Nolan special, like the dead wife thing? Like,
oh yeah, he doesn't have...
There's
Interstellar, he doesn't have a wife in Interstellar.
Memento, dead wife.
Prestige, dead wife, dead girlfriend.
Batman, dead parents, and then dead girlfriend, I think.
Yeah, he does like killing off the females.
I think the only time there's like the woman is alive is in Tenet, and then like they speak about a child that never shows up on screen.
Yeah, he's so weird.
Why the dead wife thing? Insomnia. I don't think Insomnia had that. Although it wasn't written by Nolan. It's his one movie that wasn't
Memento,
written by him.
yeah, Dead Wife and Memento.
Uh-huh.
Jesus Christ, you're right.
That's weird, right? What's going on?
He just writes the same movie over and over again, doesn't he?
Well, no, the concept changes, but he like the window dressing is like kind of the same a lot of the time.
But his concepts,
that's what's good.
His play on the time and space and playing on reality and sci-fi. What he reminds me of is like not like classic sci-fi, because when you go back to, well, kind of like classic sci-fi, he has like a Blade Runner kind of vibe to him. Like
OG.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like he kind of has the, in Blade Runner 2049, which was Villeneuve. When I think Villeneuve and Nolan are very similar in their execution, but Nolan is more high concept and Villeneuve is really good at other people's ideas and like producing them in a way that is different, but also homage to the original.
I think Villeneuve has a weird variety to his filmography too, like stylistically.
Sicario is the most random shit for him, by the way.
Enemy is really weird too. I know you haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
That's like a Lynch movie basically, but like done Villeneuve/Nolan style.
But I just feel like Nolan is definitely those classic like high concept sci-fi books where the character gets to the end and they realize it was within them the whole time type of shit. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
He nails that feeling like really well though sometimes.
Yeah.
Like like the ending of like Interstellar where McConaughey is like going off to go find Anne Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's like this weird unknown wonder
Yeah,
about the
man.
feeling of it.
We get that at the end of this film as well.
Inception flirts with it a little bit. I think Nolan did it way better in Interstellar, but
And I think it's like only fair that like it came after Inception, where like
Yeah, of
he's learning
course.
as a director. He has like developed so much as a director, but he was even in the beginning he was playing with so much concept and ideas that were like really out there, that as he's gotten farther and farther away from lower budget films, it has just made him into kind of like a monster of like it's you know what I mean? Like he's becoming a little self-serving, and he has been for a while.
yeah.
I'm hoping when we see Oppenheimer that our minds are changed. Like we are like, he's back. Like this is like his movies that he had built up until Oppenheimer were like the transition, which I think we talked about on the ranking, where Dunkirk and Tenet are him trying to get more grounded in reality. Like Dunkirk specifically, I think Tenet was like, okay, he is taking that realism feel from Dunkirk, and he's trying to apply it again to his high concepts, and it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
And now he's going to transition into more powerful, down to earth again, but with even bigger budgets.
From what I've heard, Oppenheimer is like on a whole new level in a few areas for him.
Good.
Like dialogue and acting and
Good. God, I'm so fucking excited to watch it, dude.
Do you know what rating it has on Letterboxd right now?
5? I don't know. Like 4.9?
Well, I don't think anything has that high. But
4.7?
4.4.
Pretty good?
Which is extremely high. Like,
Really?
Based on like 70,000 ratings or something,
Really?
which is pretty high up
It had like a
there.
92 or like a 98 for him on Rotten Tomatoes the other day. It's going to change a little bit. But like, we need to buy tickets like tomorrow, by the way. Like I'll buy them and we'll go from there.
I'll pay you back.
Because we need to get like our seats and shit. Because I'm sure it's going to keep continuing. Like, dude, the movie theater yesterday was fucking sold out. Like we barely could find
bet.
parking. It was crazy. And it was fun. Like, it was fun to have all these people there. And this is a weird part in his career. It's like the middle of the pack where like he's like stepping off into the next era for him.
I see it that way too, but many people think that this is like his like best movie.
No.
And I don't see it at all now.
No, I don't. Because he has the best, like, I think The Prestige is probably the best of his early work.
Yeah.
And then I think Interstellar is the best of his middle career, and we might be coming up on Oppenheimer being the best of his late career. His transitions into getting more money has always, like, his ability to move a budget with effects and casting have, like, always grown and grown and grown. But he has, like, these moments where, as a director, studios are banking on him from his last big hit. And now it's going to be Oppenheimer, is his next big hit. And the next following 2 films or 3 films might be misses for him. They won't be as big. You know what I mean? Like, he transitions so much as a director. Like, he builds up like a collection of certain resources.
I'd be curious to see that trend. Like, I like to see like the numbers themselves. But when I think about it, Interstellar, I think made a shit ton of money. And then Dunkirk probably didn't make nearly as much. And then Tenet came out during COVID, so obviously it was like probably nothing. And then Oppenheimer, from what I hear so far, is making a lot of money right now. Like, this is going to be a big fucking thing for him. This has more hype, or Oppenheimer has the most hype since Interstellar, I think, for one of his movies.
Yeah.
I know like me and you differ on this, but I adored Dunkirk.
I need to watch it again.
I know you told me you were like hungover the day that you watched
I did,
it,
and I didn't really enjoy it quite the way I should have.
Yeah, watched it on like low volume or something, and
It's already a hard movie to hear.
That's go back to it. I beg of you.
Okay.
It's Nolan at his most technical with none of like the dialogue or concept snafus. Like, it's like pure just him making like something visual, and it's incredible.
We're gonna get that next week, by the way.
Do you want to see it in like a IMAX or anything, or
Yeah, either.
What's the deal?
Probably that or Dolby. It just depends on comfort, because IMAX, we'd have to figure it out. We'll talk about it off the air, but
Yeah, okay.
70 millimeter is what everybody says you need to see it in, but I don't know if we have anything like that around. The fact that where it sits at in his filmography, in the middle, I think we've seen the end and where we're at now. I just think it feels right that it's like kind of like in the middle of all of his best strengths.
That makes sense.
And it's also like some of his shortcomings are really present as well. And that makes sense too, where he's at. Like, I think this film like really changed the game for him and like what he's able to do as a director. Because like outside of like Batman, I think this film like kind of gave him the most freedom, because like at the end of the day, execution wise, outside of the concept, it's kind of weak. But then like it was still as popular, so it gave him the ability to be like, he can kind of get away with some things. I think this movie just changed him a lot as a director.
This has been one of the weirdest podcasts that we've ever done.
I know. It's because he's one of the weirdest directors out. He's so strange in his execution. Him and Tarantino, to me, have always felt like the two guys that like don't really belong anywhere. And like I can't like put them adjacent to anybody. When I think about like Scorsese, like even like Kubrick, or I need like to watch like Francis Ford Coppola. Like I need to watch The Godfather.
I don't think I've seen any of his movies before.
And like that's the thing where it's like he doesn't like stack up to any, like he's so hard to like put next to somebody. Like
the only people that you can really compare him to are the ones that like are influenced by him, like Villeneuve, for example.
Yeah, it's the technicality. They just operate from such a behind the camera and in the sound room. Like that's where they belong. They're also like concept visionaries.
I've never had such a weird relationship with the director. I think like early on when we first started this thing, I felt very contrarian for feeling that way. I feel like me and you are like on a closer page right now than I thought we would be. Like I love him, but
I know it's like it's the weirdest relationship as an audience member, because he's so cold. Like he is such a cold director. And Villeneuve is the same way. But for some reason to me, like their movies are some of the most impactful. But it's not emotion driven. That's the thing. It's so strange. Like it's their technicality that brings me back. And then like movies that I return to because like I'm emotionally moved by are like Kung Fu Panda 2 and like The Last Samurai or The Warrior, or like even like Tron Legacy was like something I returned to. I don't know why, but emotionally I am tied to those films, but they're not as technical. You know what I mean?
In a lot of ways, I had more fun watching all of those movies you just listed than this one. That's weird.
It is. It's a strange thing as an audience member to like beloved a director, but he's not like, he doesn't resonate to like my humanity quite as well as he should, even though like he's trying to express, I don't know.
This is not a popular opinion, by the way.
No,
like,
and I know.
And like with Inception specifically, like I already said, I think this is many people's favorites.
He's just strange. And like maybe people just don't feel that way about him, but like to me, he's just a weird guy to follow. And like I still love him, but it's for all the wrong reasons, typically. Like things in other films I really wouldn't give a shit about. I think Across the Spider-Verse is like something that like we both agree that like it might be like one of the best things we've seen all year. And I mean, I think Oppenheimer, and I just saw Barbie last night and I didn't even talk about that on the air, but like Barbie was great, but like I didn't love it as much as a man. It's a very feminine movie, and I don't understand the nuances of what it is to be a woman to like quite enjoy that film the way it should be. But I think like for women, that film is like going to be amazing. I love Greta Gerwig. Like we both love Little Women.
That's an amazing movie.
I just rewatched it, by the way, with Elizabeth after the podcast, and I was just as in love with it when I first saw it. Like I think it's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen, and because I just don't get to watch a lot of female directed films. Like it's just not what as a man.
Her writing is special, I think.
Yeah, and like as a man, I'm not like naturally drawn to that. I'm not going to get as much enjoyment out of female-driven, feminine stories quite like a woman will be.
Yeah,
but like that film was like special as a man to watch, and like Barbie didn't quite feel that way. But like it was even more feminized. You're talking about the toy that like girls grew up with.
Yeah,
you know, I don't get that.
I'm expecting a totally different thing with Barbie. I'm looking at it as like a comedy going in. So
and it is funny, and like it's just I don't know. I'm glad Elizabeth loved it because I don't love it, but she does, and like I can see why it might be perfect actually. Now that I think about it, but
watch me like text you tomorrow and be like, "This is the greatest movie I've ever seen."
I think you'll understand what I'm trying to say, though. Like Elizabeth doesn't love Nolan as much as I do, and like she loves Interstellar, but I also think Interstellar is his most feminine script. Like it's about a father and a daughter, and the yearning for daughter's love for a father.
Nolan doesn't do great with female characters, but Murph in that movie is he kind of really had something with that one.
And I think that's why it is so popular, because I think it might be the film by him that is enjoyed by both men and women. We're fucking diving deep tonight.
This whole episode was like not even a review of the movie. It was like a psychoanalysis
of Nolan. Good God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we went there, but it's been fun.
Our Jurassic Park episode was like similar. Me and you share more similar ground with Nolan than Spielberg. So,
but I also think like we might be moving into that era of the podcast, by the way, where we're just like gonna kind of like analyze directors in relationship. It's different when we talk about like Tron, Warrior, and like The Last Samurai, because like those aren't films that you like associate with a director, and they're a little bit easier to deconstruct on their own. But Nolan's it's a different world, and like same with Spielberg.
Did Mulholland Drive ruin our podcast?
It might have a little bit.
We've been extremely loose since then, I feel like.
But we also have like we're doing very loose films
True.
conceptually, or just wild. They're kind of off the rails.
We'll come back down eventually.
We'll do some more basic shit soon.
I'm enjoying this ride that we're on right now, though.
Good.
Not gonna lie.
One of my favorite ideas in the film that gets expressed, and I don't know if you'll feel the same way, but like the memento, the spinning top, or the loaded die that Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
God damn it! What is the name?
Totem.
The totem. Yeah.
This is one of my favorite ideas.
It is a great idea. I know we haven't mentioned this yet. Off air, we kind of talked about it, but the formerly known as Eliot Page.
Correct.
I want
We're
to
gonna try our best.
I'm going to try my best to be respectful of like pronouns and names, but I'm like 4 modelos deep right now. So,
We're a little inebriated, so
yeah.
we might slip.
We'll
try our best.
Ariadne, is that the name?
I believe so.
Does that character ever like choose her own totem? Like, there's like a lot of.
She makes a chess piece, a bishop.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, she makes a bishop.
Why don't I remember that at all?
It's very brief.
There's the loaded die and then like the spin top, but I don't remember the.
No one else does, but hers is a bishop. She makes a bishop, and it falls a certain way.
How'd you feel about the? Or, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like take off the totem.
No,
conversation
you're fine.
fast.
That was just one of the unique ideas I liked.
I do like the totem idea. Of course, like it leaves off as like the film's final moment.
Yeah.
Which is like left open to interpretation, I suppose. I don't know.
How
I'm
do
not
you
sure
feel
if that's a
about that?
conversation you want to have or not.
No, I have that conversation.
Is it real life or is it dream, brother?
This is just fantasy caught in a landslide. Straight to. Sorry, you can't just like start singing that song and not keep going. It's one of them.
We are fucked up, homie.
Yeah, we are. It's fine.
This is great.
Doing surprisingly well for our state. But yeah, I don't know how you felt about that. Like, to me, it feels right for a Nolan film. Like, it feels right for the film itself to be like, oh well, who cares?
I actually love it, honestly.
But I don't know what that does to open the doors of like what we just watched either. Because to me, it kind of feels like not really applicable to the rest of the story.
That is very true. God damn it, that is extremely true.
Sorry.
What have you done to me?
Sorry. Like, to me, it's like, I get that. I get what he's doing because...
Is it a great scene in the wrong movie?
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense a lot to me in terms of like, how does that tie back to the script in any way? How does anything lead up to that moment being impactful in any way?
Yeah, it barely goes there, right?
Yeah.
There's like a random scene as soon as the Ariadne character has come into play, like is in the group. It's when Dicaprio's explaining the whole dream concept to her at like the cafe, which honestly might be my favorite scene in the movie.
We didn't even talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know how I forgot about that one.
They literally fold the skyscrapers on top of each other.
That might be like one of my favorite moments of the whole movie. But when we come out of that dream, like DiCaprio like goes to the bathroom and like spins the top, and, like he's like sweating and like throwing water on his face. I don't know if like that desperation really felt like it was anywhere else in the movie. That's the only time it really felt like
he was trying to separate reality from dream.
Yeah, I felt like that arc with his character wasn't really explored all that great.
But here's the other thing. At the end of the film, when he goes to spin the top, the thing that he was trying to avoid the whole movie is the thing that like takes him away from checking in on reality. It was his children, because he never wanted to look at his kids in the face in the dream world when Ma would bring them in. His subconscious would bring them in. By the way, it's him. It's him fighting his own subconscious. They're not real, they're not other dreamers. They're just projections of what he thinks. And him refusing to look at them, refusing to like get lost in, because he needs to go back to real life. When he goes to spin the top at the end of the film, it's when they call him out, and like when he hears them and sees them is what distracts him from looking at the top again. Part of me is like, okay, there's a little something there, but I don't know that I've gone far enough to really even think that it's worth anything in context to the rest of the film. Because I don't think anything else in the film really sets itself up to like push that idea forward at any other point.
I like the scene though.
I don't know. Something that I've been trying to wrap my head around too is like the fact that DiCaprio, Cobb, goes to find Saito, which we didn't even talk about, like Ken Watanabe, a dog. He's the man.
I think he actually
He's the man.
has a pretty good performance in this. Like,
Last Samurai. He's the man.
yeah, he was excellent in that.
He's the fucking
too.
man.
I love him.
He's like my favorite foreign actor, by the way, outside of like Mads Mikkelsen. Him and Cobb being down in limbo together. It's how the film starts, by the way. And I'm trying to figure out if there's any implications of them being down in limbo for so long of how the story ends, because it's right after that. After Cobb meets with Saito down in limbo when they're old men, or like when Saito's an old man, and Dicaprio can't remember where he's at either. He's like, I was here to do something. You know, they're both trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's almost like Saito coming to the realization almost reminds Dicaprio himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That we're like, wait, we were supposed to honor our agreement. You know, something like that. And like so when that happens right before the end of the film, I'm trying to think, okay, did something happen down at that level, like what he did to Maul down in limbo?
Like, do you mean like
did someone else perform Inception on him
on
down in
Saito or Saito or
on DiCaprio Cobb? Because the whole. Sorry, this is so stupid, but like, you know what I mean. But like, that's what the end of this film does. It's like, okay, why?
It must be important because, like, as you said, the very first scene of this movie is that moment, like DiCaprio showing up.
And then the whole movie follows after that.
Yeah. Like, here's the end. We're starting at the end, and then we're going back to the beginning. That moment has to be extremely important in terms of theme, if there is a theme here.
Right? But
is that what you're saying?
It's just like, okay, but like, why start the film like that and end the film like that? It's literally the start of the film and the end of the film. And after that scene in the end, they get off the plane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everything executes perfectly. And so I'm trying to think, okay, if you have the beginning of the film starting with that conversation, and maybe it's something that I didn't do well enough and I need to rewatch it, but there's something there. Like, are they trying to say, maybe it's at the beginning of the dream? You know what I mean? Like, because they're trying to perform Inception on Saito. When you're talking about like these espionage, like, okay, is this like a fucking double cross in the world of fucking Nolan here? Like, is Cobb the one getting Inception performed on him, like, so he can go back to his children?
It's hard to say.
You know what I mean? Like,
is there enough here to?
I know,
like, platform that theory.
It's just like the choosing to do that at the end of the film. It like really fucks up the whole film, like, for me, and to the point where like I don't really know that I like that ending for that reason. It's like, why would you do that? Like, because it's not like Interstellar, where it's like, yeah, that all just happened, and now he's going to keep continuing on, but there's some finality to the situation. This film, it's like, okay, where am I backtracking to try to figure out what that meant? It's so frustrating.
Yeah. There's like nothing there to read into.
Mm-hmm. Because like in Tenet, the beginning is the end, and so it loops back around and it makes sense. In this film, the end is just kind of like so fucking loose. It doesn't ever feel like he caps off anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate doing this to you.
Well, it's not like you're like ruining the movie or anything for me. I already felt kind of weird about the thing as a whole already. Do you think it deserved something more definitive?
A little bit, to be honest. It just felt like unnecessary.
The ambiguous nature like wasn't really earned. This script kind of demanded some kind of answer or like some kind of finale.
Like in Memento, the end of that film is like, yeah, okay, like that's
the dude's fucking himself, basically.
Yes, he chooses to forget. But it makes sense in the context, you know. In The Prestige, it's like when the end of that film, there's a lot of finality in that. So,
yeah, this one, wow.
We really deconstructed this film compared to the rest of his.
I did not think about it that way. The ending is really weird. Like, the scene is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's
a well-executed scene where, like, I've kind of been tricked into thinking that it meant something.
Exactly. My point exactly.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're right. It's the wrong scene, or it's a good scene in the wrong film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not. It doesn't make sense in context of the story.
Is there like any finality to any of the other characters, like Ariadne or Tom Hardy, Arthur?
No, they all had like really boring. They didn't even have motives. They were just like other agents, basically, at this point.
It's weird. Like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is really a charismatic actor,
Yeah.
and like he like had nothing here. Really.
I know. There's no motivation.
And I've said my piece on like Tom Hardy in like our Warrior episode.
He was quippy and fun, and like he was all right.
He was charismatic.
Again, a big nothing burger.
I thought that Paige was good.
Yeah, she was
okay. Like, It felt like they tried to give like that character a lot, and
Yeah.
it felt like there wasn't much towards the end.
No. She was kind of weird. She kind of felt like she was tripping around a lot of stuff.
Like she was there to ask questions most of the time.
Exactly. And I also felt like she was really young. Her character felt really young. And so it kind of came across like she was like a little too innocent for the rest of these people. I don't know. I wasn't like a huge fan of her character, to be honest with you.
Really?
Like, not that she wasn't bad or anything. Like, it wasn't like a bad performance or bad dialogue. It just kind of felt like her presence on the screen was like kind of fucking boring.
I mean, join the club.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
I thought that character was actually more interesting than Dicaprio.
Yeah, for sure. It just, I don't know. Something was really off with a lot of the elements here.
Like the concept was really great, and like it explored the concept great, but like
That's it.
like kind of like forgot to like be a film at times. Like in terms of like the most basic
And that's
things you iron out at the beginning.
I honestly think at the end of this, now that we've talked about a lot, I think this film is like just slightly better than Tenet. It like kind of gets away with the things that Tenet did that Tenet couldn't get away with. Because the protagonist in Tenet, like I literally think if you would have named the character and like you would have been able to like hear what the characters were saying, the film would have been like much more well received. And then because in Tenet, it's like you have nothing to latch onto. In this film, like you do have like something to grab on.
I would still take this over like Dark Knight Rises.
Yo, for sure. I think Dark Knight Rises is awful. I really don't like it. I'd have to get paid money, I think, to like rewatch it, to be honest. Like I really have no interest in rewatching it unless I decided to watch the trilogy itself. But even then I might skip it.
Dude, that movie sucks.
It does.
You haven't seen it in like 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It'd be so much worse now.
Yeah, we would hate it.
I watched it last year, so I was reminded.
Yeah.
You would feel the same, I think.
I still stand by the fact that I think Batman Begins is better than The Dark Knight because I think Heath Ledger carries. Anyway, don't worry about it. We talked about it, I think.
Yeah, we talked about it before. Are we at the end of the line?
I think so. I don't know. I really liked the conversation and the direction it was in.
This has been a chaotic one, but it was very fun.
We talked about him as a director more than the film itself, but like I feel like this film was really necessary to kind of compare to other films because you can kind of see where his style has like ebbed and flowed and where it began and where it's at now. And I think this film just kind of like is Nolan at like kind of like his most okay, like average.
Yeah.
You know? And like that's okay.
Not a bad movie by any means.
No.
It's still above average.
I just think that now that we've had more perspective on him as a director, as the years have gone on, revisiting the film, we kind of remember it being great. And now that we're here, it's like, oh yeah, like it was good, but now it doesn't seem as good, but it's not as bad as some of the other things we've seen. It's just strange. It's a strange position this film takes now.
What do you think feels right in terms of like rating?
I think like a 7 is like 7 out of 10 is like kind of where I'm at. I even kind of want to say like 6.8. I don't think I've ever done anything like other than like a 0.5, but I think like a 6.8 is like really necessary. Like maybe like 6.9.
That kind of feels like the space it occupies. An extremely light 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's my rating, at least.
Yeah, it was strange, man. It's a strange one, but it was a good conversation. I think this film really lent itself to be able to like open up kind of Nolan as a director in the way that like maybe we even couldn't do it when we ranked him. So anyway, that's all I got. I had a lot of fun. I'm like really glad we did it because
Me too.
I got to rewatch Inception, so it was pretty cool.
Before we go into recommendations, I have to pee again.
Yeah, you're fine, man.
Piss break.
Let's do it. Come on.
All right. White boy spiel time. So I've noticed like 2 things with the podcast recently, 2 reoccurring themes. And one of them is like nostalgia or like getting back to the root of who we are. I think that's especially been apparent with like some of the stuff that you've been doing.
100%.
Warrior, Tron, Last Samurai, Inception. And then the last 2 episodes that we've done with Inception and Jurassic Park were kind of like in summer blockbuster territory. I mean, I think Inception was a summer
for sure.
blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about how that applies to like the music sphere as opposed to movies.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like, what is like a summer blockbuster in terms of music?
Yeah.
I had a bunch of ideas, like from like 4 different decades. I guess I'll just tell you them because they're the ones that we're not doing. But I thought about like doing like Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Or like I thought about Prince and like and
Prince.
And these are things that I think maybe would be better a few months from now.
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know if I'm like nostalgic for either of those 2 artists. I liked them as an adult. I wasn't into them as a teenager or a kid.
Exactly.
I've boiled it down to a 2002 album that I think when I was like in my teenage years, it was like very important in developing the stuff that I would like later on.
I like this. I love this direction. My next step is in that direction as well, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Like music-wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that.
Fuck yeah, dude. It's coming.
The reason I was so iffy on it is because I think one time you told me that you hated this group.
And
then that kind of intrigues me. In a way.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm doing a lot of like building up.
Here's the trailer.
But it's an uncharacteristically mature and breezy album by this group that I think otherwise has been seen as like kind of become a meme in modern day. But it's the 2002 album By the Way by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, okay. Dude, this is going to be fun.
And I know, like...
Ooh, okay.
I guess I should just ask, like, do you hate them? Or, like,
that song?
yeah, that's one of them.
I
Yeah.
don't hate them. I guess I don't view them in the same way as I view, like, Pink Floyd.
And that'll be something that we discuss,
Unpack.
like the classic status of the band.
The
or
classic status.
Like,
there you go.
Like, do they hold up? Do they deserve to be in that conversation?
I'm excited to listen to an entire album
Have you
by
ever?
a classic group like this. Like, Pink Floyd is, like, the only one of those groups that I have. I may come away, like, end up, like, loving this, by the way.
Have you ever listened to, like, a Chili Peppers album? Do you know, like, any of
I know their
albums?
songs, but I don't know if I know, like, their albums front to back. So, like, this will be interesting.
This isn't, like, their most famous album. I'd say Blood Sugar Sex Magic or, like, Californication are probably, like, their 2 most famous. This is probably, like, the 3rd, maybe. It's really more of a John Frusciante solo record with Chili Peppers as the backing band.
Okay.
I've actually been digging it lately. Like, it felt
Okay.
kind of good to return to it.
This excites me because I've been listening to older stuff with, like, Elizabeth's dad, listening to shit with Jerry, all this classic shit that they grew up on, like, you know, Zeppelin and fucking Black Sabbath, and getting into classic groups is something that I haven't ever really done with, like, rock. Like, getting into the Beatles was, like, really fun, but, like, that's, like, about as classic as it fucking gets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this will be interesting to, like, this will be new territory for me, which is, like, kind of good because I don't feel like well, let me put it this way. I don't feel like you've challenged me as much musically as we've gotten older. Like, you've definitely challenged me in, like, film. I think Zodiac and, like, Mulholland Drive.
Like a Birdman or something.
You know what I mean? Like, stuff that's, like, that's really challenging for me. Like, that's a direction that I don't ever step in quite like you do. So this will be interesting with fresh ears. Like, I don't think I've ever really... Is there, like, a popular single off the record?
Have you heard the song Can't Stop?
Probably, but I can't think of it all off the top of my head. So this will be interesting. Okay, so...
It's good because it doesn't have like their most memorable, or, like the most iconic singles. There's no Under the Bridge, Scar Tissue, Californication. This record is like not funky compared to other stuff by them. It's like very harmony driven and like guitars. It's like very soft and breezy, melodic.
I'm so excited to do a record. You're so much better with music recommendations than I am.
You never do music recommendations, hardly. I wish you would.
Get her.
What?
It's coming.
Okay.
I just did the nostalgic movies. Bubba, we're going into the nostalgic music territory soon for me.
Good. I like nostalgia.
Good. This will be fun. I'm excited. Yeah, thanks for that was a great conversation. And
It was.
I'm
That
excited.
was fun.
I'm excited for what we talk about next. That's going to be really fun for me to unpack, and I'm excited what you're gonna bring to the table on that. So,
Okay.
Until next time, that's all I have to say. That was a lot of fun. If you could do me the honors of getting us off the air.
Adios.